Hi, this is the Three Count Podcast, and I'm Dahlia.
I'm in fashion, roll with cold
Everybody to another great edition of the Three Count Podcast presents Now Entering, and I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller, the man that leads you up this mountain called wrestling. But by now, with our 200 and something episode, I would figure you guys are going to say with me now, I am your Sherpa. Because like your tribal chief, acknowledge me. But like every good Sherpa, you got to have someone who's been there, done that, and can do it more efficiently than you can. And that's why it's never about me. It's about who's entering the ring. So who's entering the ring today? Well, she is a production manager. She is an owner. She's a talent manager. She's been a valet. She's been a wrestling manager. And she is Dahlia.
That's me.
Yo, so how's it going?
It's going.
It's going. Not yet. Isn't that how it usually works out? It's like you always feel like there's always something going on, and you're just like, dang, what am I doing now? And then like you have some other piece that you have to like put together for your bigger puzzle, and then hope that everything fits in well for one day.
Oh yeah. Anybody in the wrestling circuit understands that a show day is never like you're just gonna show up and work for 20 minutes and leave. When you run a show like I do, it's like a 22-hour day, so it's fun. We'll call it fun. We'll call it fun.
Yeah. especially if like you're a parent, so then it's like wake up and you gotta wake the kids up, and then breakfast, and then you gotta get to the show, and then you gotta get them settled in, and then you have to get ready for, and then you don't eat lunch, and then you're like set up the ring, set up the tables, set up the chairs, set up the entrance, right? Make sure the music's getting set up, make sure everybody's in place.
Yeah. She's come with me to some shows. She was with me we had 2 events on Saturday, and I was jealous of how she was sleeping on the way home. I'm driving home and I'm like, man, she's out. She slept till like 10:30 the next morning. She was done. It's a lot on kids. But if I had told her you're not going, I would have probably gotten slapped. So she lives for it just as much as I do. And that's honestly like why I got into this. I got into this out of I needed a new hobby. And Blackthorn and I were an item. So I actually started out just as his travel buddy. I was there because he would call me and spend the whole time on the way home from Pennsylvania, which was a 5-hour one-way drive, like almost falling asleep. So I started going with him to, make sure he ate, make sure, take care of him, manage him. That's essentially what I did was I managed him. And then it was, to the point where I was like, okay, well, I want to get involved. So I started valeting as a way to build up my confidence to being able to wrestle and being able to do things. And I won't turn back now. It's been 3 years, and it's been an amazing 3 years. I've gone from literally just riding in a car wearing a Blackthorn shirt that I made to now I run a company with them, and we only want bigger and better things.
Well, and it's cool whenever you get into it and you kind of learn like the ropes and stuff, and then you start understanding like how to move the needle, right? And you're like, all right, well, we can do this, we can do that. That didn't work this time. Maybe we'll try something out this time. And you're always like gauging how people are coming. So for you to be able to start something like Kaiju is awesome, because like you're seeing like in its infancy, right? You're like with your guys' first show in March, and then you guys just keep building on top of it. And then, before we even went on the air, like you were telling me about the plans that you guys have about growing it and moving it and just the pieces. So it's like, dang, you guys learn a lot really fast, and it, gets other people excited too. Cause I'm like, I want to be a part of this company too.
I do have to say, like a lot of it is because Kaiju is a COVID baby. It is. I mean, we were told, everybody was told when COVID hit, it was going to be a month quarantine and everything would go back to normal. Everything would be fine. And then June, we're sitting around talking and we're like, well, it'd be great to start our own thing. And, we've learned between Blackthorn, myself, Menace, and Skip, we have, I mean, just Menace and Blackthorn have easily 15 years each in the business. Blackthorn's wrestled in Mexico. Like, I mean, we've got the knowledge and the tools. I have the business knowledge. I was a business major, and I had really good mentorship growing up. So when it came down to it, I would chime in and be like, you can't do that. It's an HR issue. And then I'd, you know, sit back down. And we decided we wanted to see that we took the things that we didn't like in the independent circuit, regardless of where it was, and we built our foundations around changing it. Because the only way you're going to change an industry at all is by positive leadership.
Mm.
I mean, think about anybody who leaves a job. They don't leave a job because they hate it. They leave a job because they hated a manager or they hated a rule. There's something that didn't rub them the right way. And
Right.
so we literally took that as our recognition to doing everything differently. When guys and girls, because we are unisex, come into the locker room, the one thing I always consistently hear about our locker room is that it is a loving and caring environment. Everybody leaves their trash at the door. You know, you don't like somebody who's booked, leave it outside. You're both here to work. It's not about you. It's not about your ego. It's about Kaiju and what you want to bring to the table for us so that we bring you back. But everybody works as a team. The last show was incredibly stressful on me because it was SummerSlam night and it was brutal. And at the end of the night, the guys made me cry. And I'm pretty rough and tough, but they made me actually stream tears. Because we were done packing up and we were all loading our gear into our cars, and they obviously came to get paid. So we're giving out the envelopes and they were cheering me and all my hard work. And I don't ever see that happen at promotions when they actually look at a promoter and say, thank you for tonight. So that was honestly huge. And I was so worried I was going to let anybody down. It's nerve wracking when you're doing the show essentially with three of us running the whole show. It was a big deal that it even happened, to be honest, because as soon as we found out we had our venue for SummerSlam night, we all panicked. It's like, been advertising the show for 2 months. We really can't change this. We're done. But we did have a crowd and it was nice. And actually talking with some of the wrestlers that were there last weekend, because I saw them at bookings because I'm still active. And they even said, they're like, it was so nice that we encouraged the wrestlers to go out. Our locker room at that venue was very small, like painfully small. And so with the Rumble in our last show, we had 20 guys just in the Rumble. So as management, we said, if you're on the second half of the show, you need to go out and watch. Just be out of the locker room. Don't crowd it. It's going to get hot in here. Like, we want you guys comfortable. The guys kind of giggle because I do things like I run out and get them McDonald's and they show up to like cold water waiting for them. Like, it's set up like a glorified green room. But that's the mom in me. I want to make sure they're hydrated. I want to make sure my guys are fed. I don't want anybody passing out. So I try to take care of them. The first show I was like, who wants McDonald's? I'm going to go run out. And they're like, wait, really? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, that's what's near what I got to go to. What do you want? So that was really, I think that showed them, especially at the first show, like, okay, this company's going to be different. So we try to do it different every show.
That's awesome though. Like the one thing I love hearing is the fact that you guys you're really putting forward not just like the positive mentality, but obviously like the family mentality. So like to have like that positive family motivation, like of course like the wrestlers are gonna go all out for you because you're doing the same for them, and so they want to treat you like you're treating them, and that's like the good mark of like good bosses and good leaders is that they don't. The one thing like I used to talk about all the time, especially when I got out of the military, is that good bosses will kick down doors for you.
Yep.
But good leaders will show you how to kick down those doors.
Yep.
And I really love the fact that you're out here and you've already established that you guys have like this cool, loving, friendly environment in the back. And if people have a problem, you're just like, no, take that shit outside,
Yep.
talk about it, whatever you gotta do, leave it there,
Y'all
and then
got
come
to
back
if y'all
in.
got a spar in the parking lot, just wait till all the fans are inside. It's a because the other thing too is it's a family show. Like
Right.
we run a PG show. So I know hardcore is getting big in the industry. Everybody wants to be, have a death match and everything. We always wanted it to be about kids because we wanted it to be about the new generations coming into wrestling, and we thought about what we loved as kids wrestling, and it was the attitudes, it was the storylines, it was, like, who didn't love DX, who didn't love the Heart Foundation? Like, we want that. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that's part of why my gear, why I'm the fan favorite gear for me is my hot pink and black. I know it's because of the Heart Foundation. I know it is. And that's okay because that's why it's my favorite gear. Bret Hart was one of my favorites. So it's a given when, we owe I mean, you've been in enough locker rooms. How many places have you heard this is a family?
Yeah, and probably every single one.
Every single one of them does it. And for us, we said from the very beginning, and we say it like even in our workers group, I do lives. I try to do lives every couple of weeks. It's been a little stressful the last couple of weeks, but um we always say it's Mama Bear checking in on my crew. How's everybody doing? How's everybody feeling? Um, you know, who wants a dream match? Like, when I book somebody, I flat out ask them, like, if you could wrestle anybody, who would it be? And my goal is to make that happen for them when I book them, because I want to make it's not just about the paycheck. I want to make it where it's memorable for them. Like, last show, we opened the show with Stepdads versus the Throne. I did not know until that day. Nobody had told me that they have been trying to get that match booked for 6 years.
I love both teams. We've had both teams on the show. Yeah, that would definitely be a match. It's a match now I didn't know I need to
Yeah,
see. So I,
yeah.
I wish I
And
would have been able to come.
honestly, like, I just thought it was a great idea because they're both very, very, very out there teams. Like, they're both very crowd driven. They're very, so we're like, let's open with them. Uh, let's just start the show off right away with a star match. Um, and I can't wait for our footage. Our footage is still being edited before we can put it up, but I can't wait to see the comments when it goes up, because I mean, even both teams still come to me and thank me for that match, and that's how I know I did a good job as a booker. Because Skip and I sit there. Skip runs the storylines, and we book together, and it's a team effort. It's okay. We have the show. How many matches do you want? How many matches am I taking? He makes sure the storylines are staying on point. I make dreams happen. So we have a well-oiled machine for a newborn. We
I
really
like
do. We don't have managerial issues. We don't pick at each other or fight. We don't, we're very good about, like, we work as an actual team.
I like that. I like that a lot. That's a lot of fun. That's crazy too. Like, especially the Throne is like I'm a massive fan of Casey and Daniel. I think
Yes.
these dudes are so much fun to be around, and it's crazy because like we met. It was a couple years ago. We met. It's weird to say that because I've only been in for anybody who's paying attention. 2 years.
Yep.
But I ran into them. I ran into them with pure ignorance, and
Yep.
once we started talking with them, like we brought him on the podcast, and since we had him on the podcast, like Daniel, Casey, and I, we just kind of kept our we chat a few times like here and there. And I
Mhm.
saw them randomly at an Outbreak show, and we were doing a quarantine episodes. And when I saw them there, they're like, "Dude, you've changed so much." I was like, "Bro, I'm just so happy to see you guys. Shut up and give me a hug."
Casey did that when I showed up at GPW on Saturday. I showed up in my gear because I had just left GTS.
Mm.
So I only had a 15-minute drive. Like, I'm not getting out of gear. Like, this is a whole thing. I'm not. No, the wig is even staying on. I think I left with the wig off, and then I got to a traffic light and put it back on. Um, But I roll through the parking to go to the parking lot, and Casey's literally standing in the middle of the road, and he's like, "Mom's here! Mom's here! Mom's here! Everybody, mom's here! Mom's here!" And I'm like, "It's not even my show, Casey. Relax." And he's like, "Hey, she's in gear! She's in gear already! We don't even have to wait for her to get changed. Look, she's already ready." And I'm like, "Oh my god!" His wife, she's going like this, like screaming in the car. I'm like, this is why I love them, because they're so vibrant in life. And it's not just in wrestling. Like, they don't turn it on. It's always on.
It's always on. It
Always
always on.
He will randomly, he started the 401k chant at Kaiju. And he said, every once in a while I'll get a random message from Casey, and it'll be, "Ma, Casey, I swear to God, if you say it, I'm firing you." How about that, Casey? Don't do it. I will fire you. How's your day going? That's better. He does it anytime he's like, he thinks I'm having a bad day. It's like, "So, Ma, about that 401k." So I had to teach him about, I know some financial background.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to teach him about like 403b pension plans. I'm like, "Honey, we got to give you more into the repertoire. You can't just all be about the 401k. So like, me and Daniel were having a conversation with Casey the other day, and we were busting his chops, and we're talking about, he's like, "Don't listen to him, Ma. I don't need a 401k. I got a 401k at my job." And Casey's like, "No, no, no. I need a 401k. I need a 401k. Daniel's like, "No, you don't. You're a contractor. This could take money out of your paycheck. You want to lose 5%? I'm like, I'm like, "You two must do this all day long." Like, there is no way this was planned before I got here. And I'm like sitting there having this conversation with them, and I'm like, "Go run your match. I gotta go work with my We Are One boys. I gotta go." So it was nice to go valet somebody new for once. I've been valeting Menace and Blackthorn for so long and neither one of them was at the show, and I was like, "Well, we're supposed to be on it, so I'm going. I'm only 10 minutes away." So I walked up to Daniel Alexander and Oliver, the Just Brothers No Colors.
Nice.
I think I said it right for once. I get it backwards every time. And I said, "So you guys are here for the kids, right?" And you go, "Yeah." I said, "I got the candy basket. Need a valet?" They're like, "Yes." I was like, "Okay."
Nice.
So,
I think it's cool that like you said, like I want to kind of bring back a point that you mentioned, right? Like it's you guys' show is PG, but it's more focused about the kids because that's where like that you want to grow that next generation. And I think anybody who's smart understands that like you because it was something I learned in this movie Neverland, right, with Johnny
yep.
Depp, right, and Freddie Highmore, where he wrote Peter Pan and he put kids like random places, right, like the orphans. And like when the kids are laughing, then the parents got into it. And I think that's something that a lot of people miss because they're like, "Oh, hey, yeah, I'm just gonna go out and have these super cool matches." And like people are cool with it and they're happy, but it's when you interact with the kids that you start drawing more into them, and then like the fans take you on too. And I know like I was working at a show and my character is just so random. He was like, he has a gun spot, and so I make like gun noises, right? And this kid didn't even remember my name, but he remembered that I did that.
Yep.
So he went and told his dad. He was like, "Dad, can we find a guy who was like pew 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 pew?" And then they came and found me, and I was like, "What's going on?" And we started talking to stuff. And like now, like every time I'm at the show, like he's there. He's like waiting for me to come in, and he's waiting to come say hi and stuff. So I think it's really cool. But it's about those kids, man, because those kids will definitely wrap around you. And I know myself and Prince Machiavelli, we had worked at another place at IWA, Vintage Pro Wrestling, and while we were working our match, we knew the kids, we saw them,
Yep.
so everything we did, we made sure like they were like paying attention. And when we left, and we did our match, we had a lot of fun. The kids like popped, and then we left. We came back, and when we came back for like intermission, those kids just want to come hang out with us, and that's all they did. And we thought it was great. And then more people were like, "Hey, what are you guys doing? Like, what are you guys selling? Blah 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 blah." And like the merch money came along too, but it was more about like just focus on like these kids and having fun. It was like a youth baseball team, which even made it like way better. So we had so much fun with them and just hang out and just talk with them. And everybody's like, "Man, I really wish I would have thought about that." I was like, "Well, they are there
Yep.
for a reason."
So you know what I do for merch, right? Have you ever heard have you gotten wind of what I do for merch?
I have not.
Okay, so I actually make goodie bags.
Nice.
I sell goodie bags specifically for kids. Every single one of them is different. I hand make every single one of them. And that's literally my whole table. Candy bags, you can't see the contents. You have to pick one at random. You just pick the color bag and that's it. And they're Dahlia's Delights. And I've been doing this now for like about a year. About a year. I just wanted something different. And I noticed that like there's really not a whole lot of merch out for kids. It's all t-shirts and grown-up size. It's, posters. Kids aren't really going to think about the autographs and stuff yet. They're going to think about that when they're older. But what kid doesn't want a bag with candy and toys?
That's
And not
such a
just that,
smart
like,
idea.
right. So what I do is whenever we include a new wrestler that has a kid, I always donate a bag. I might maybe stuff it a little harder than usual. Um, but I want them to bring it home and be like, "Hey, I got this from you at my show." And I always ask for feedback because the kids are going to be honest. And the last time I gave one to a wrestler, I checked on it and I was like, "So how did he like it?" And he's like, "Dude, I had to take it away. There's so much candy in there." I'm like, "Yeah, I know it's a good deal." Because I don't skip on it either. It's good candy. It's like I put in like blow pops and dum dums and like ring pops. And then I find the most everybody compliments me on the candy basket. I have to stop doing this because the wrestlers are killing the candy basket before the show. But I get the most obscure flavors of fruit Tootsie Rolls. Yeah, I found vanilla ones. I
Yes.
found where they sell vanilla ones. Um, and like I have the unicorn pops and at GPW on Saturday. It was so adorable because they have had a lot of the same kids coming to all the shows and they remembered seeing me like back in April was the last time I was at GPW and I came out with the candy basket and I walked around and gave out the candy to all the kids in the crowd and did my valet thing. And when I came out with No Colors Just Brothers, I saw the kids go, "She's here with the basket." And after they started the match, I went and sat down with Ryan on the side because I'm not really, I don't really need to be there. I just wanted an excuse to come out to the kids. And the kids kept coming over. They're like, and I hear one kid go, "This is the lady with the candy. She always has the best candy." And I look at Ryan and I'm like, and that's why I have to go buy more because they killed the basket. The whole basket's gone in 5 minutes. I was like, that's great.
Yeah.
But no, wrestling's always going to be about kids, and I know some of my workers get mad. I'm like, you guys can't flip each other off. It's not PG, gotta watch your mouth. I always say it. We have at least 3 discussions before the show starts. Watch your mouth. Because it's the mood we want to set. We want to be different. And that's how we're going to be different. We're going to just make sure that the families can feel confident coming. I want parents to be able to bring their kids back, and those are going to be the kids and if I could bring them new wrestlers every time, that's more exposure for the workers. That's more exposure for managers to grow. That's more opportunities for other federations to say, "Hey, I have some really amazing talent. You want to trade?" And that's what the indie circuit's supposed to be. It's supposed to be, free market. We're all independent contractors. You know, it's
Yep.
it's really sad when businesses are like, "I don't want you guys working for this company or this company or this company." So are you
I
going to pay them when they're going to get booked on my show and then they're not going to have a show? Are you going to pay them for that time?
Yeah, I hear that a lot, especially like in my area. They're always like, if you work for
Mhm.
this company, you can't work. And is the crazy part. This is where like things are starting to. It's you can work for that company, but understand that I can't do anything with you at mine. And that's the always discussion
Right.
point. I'm like, man, like that's crazy because like um and then at that point it's like, well, I appreciate it, but they want to run this with me and this is the goal that they have and what's your plan here? Because like at that point, if you're gonna compete, I gotta I gotta feel
Yeah.
like I won too in this point. Like, was that commercial where they're like, when banks compete, you win? Like, is that
Yeah.
lending free?
Yes.
Right? So if companies are
Yes.
gonna compete, like, hey, then I gotta win. But at the same time, like, it's like I wanna work with as many promotions as I can, because at the end of the day, like you said, like, it's not just about me, it's about like helping everybody like lift their ships up too, right? Because all
Right.
rising tides lift all ships. And I was like, if I can't work for your company because you don't like that person, that's not on me. That's your problem, not my problem. And I don't want to sound like that,
Right.
because I want to be a team player, but I want to be everybody's team player.
Well, I mean, we do the same thing. Like we'll put up booking notices in our worker group, and we'll say, okay, who's available? Here's our next 2 dates. Who's available? It doesn't mean they're getting booked, but if I see like, hey, okay, these people aren't available, like we were going to have a show in August and we decided to push it. Honestly, I need a break. I've been go I've been going nonstop to New Jersey for a solid like 8 weeks every
Dang.
weekend. And it's a 6 hour ride round trip, plus the whole day of working and the getting ready and the sitting in traffic and the like trying to like plan out, because like you said, I'm a single mom. I got to plan out custody arrangements and stuff. And it's not like I'm like, sure, I'm free. I can just get in the car and go. But I flat out told my management team, I was like, guys, trying to pull off another show in 3 weeks is probably going to exhaust me. Um, how about, it also seems like a lot. And we had set out feelers who said, okay, who's available for August? And a lot of our guys were already booked. I would rather push a show back a month and be able to have who we want on it than say pick and choose between a booking you already had and us.
Yeah.
I just think that's more respectful to them and their time and their career that they're building, to say, okay, it's not like, we can't have a show. We have right now, Kaiju has a roster of almost 75.
Wow.
We're not hurting. We have the talent. We have the willingness to run a show. But if I'm going to be Mama Bear and I'm going to be representing everything that we say we stand for, part of that is going, okay, are my Cubs going to be okay?
Right.
Are they going to be put in a position where they have to pick and choose? I personally don't like when people double book. I don't punish people for it. I just tell them, let me know so I can put you on the card appropriately. But I mean, I worked a double booking this weekend and I was bloody exhausted till yesterday. And I didn't even get in the ring. I can
Mm.
only imagine what getting in the ring 2 or 3 times in a day feels like, because I felt like death. So I personally don't want to be responsible for doing that to somebody, and I'm also not going to keep them for money. So I think that's more, respect for my talent. And I hope that other places stop doing the whole you have to pick and choose your loyalty. I don't think honestly, it should be management is loyal to their talent, not the talent needs to be loyal to their management.
I like that. And I agree. I mean, it's one of those things that's like, I don't know. It's funny for me because like I schedule all my dates out, and then I just ask people. I'm like, "You'll give me all your dates," because after that, like, I'm just closing that date
Right.
off. Like, I don't want to do like, if it's close by, maybe if it's like a 40-minute drive or something, maybe I can make that, like, I'll be like, that's acceptable. But you like my trainer, right? He was in Ohio. He worked 2 matches. They drove 5 hours, and he was supposed to work at another show, and he was like, he got there, he was in gear, and then they told him they changed the whole plan on him of what they had discussed the day before. So they had discussed this whole plan the day before. He got there the day of. They changed the plan, and he was just like, "Listen, nah, dude, that's not what we're gonna do." He's like,
Yeah.
"I just wrestled 2 matches. I drove 5 hours across to come here for have you change a match on me." He's like, "Nah, we're not doing that."
Yeah.
And he was like respectful about it, but he was like, "Why? Like, why not just go with what we had planned and not, So it was what it was at that point, and I was like, "Dang." I was like, and then that spot that he was working at was another 4-hour drive back to where he lives. And I was like, oh, bruh, nah, I'm good.
It honestly, and I get that because it floors people every time I'm in New Jersey, like especially like when I meet new people at like GTS or LTW, or even when like even Gen Pro, um, which I love what Newsy and Paul are doing, and Ray. I love what they're doing with GPW. They're carrying the same kind of torch we are, and it's just the more federations that start and carry that light, it's going to be easier for it to transmit. And I have no problem sharing. I've told them, hey, I've told feds, you want your, if your champion's going to be on my show, have them bring their belt. I don't care that it's not a KPW belt. My partners don't care that it's not a KPW belt. What matters is your champion is getting their attention, their proper attention, because they're not coming here as a nobody. They're coming here as somebody's champion. At the last show, we had a tag match with literally 4 belts on the line, 2 double belt holders against each other. And I got to thank you for that, because it was like, thank you, because that was really nice to be able to share my hard work. And I'm like, you should be sharing your hard work. Why would I want to stop any other federation from being watched or have their ticket sales go down? We also try to pay attention to, when we plan out the shows, who else is running, so that we're not kind of intersecting with people. Like, we're very cognizant of all of that. Now, ironically, we added in the WWE schedule after the SummerSlam incident. That's always like, we'll throw out show ideas and like date ideas, and Blackthorn will go, so I checked all the schedules. We're good of any pay-per-views, and I'm like, thank you. So, because it was actually, when we booked the July date, we booked it so long ago. We booked it like 4 or 5 months ago. I don't think it occurred to anybody to check that far. So when I kind of had a gut feeling that something bad was coming, and then Blackthorn calls me and goes, so did you know that Saturday is SummerSlam? And I went, yeah, I found out this morning. No pressure. No pressure. Good news is, our show will be done before SummerSlam starts. So maybe we could advertise it as a pregame. But yeah, that was tricky. So going forward now, we obviously quadruple check everything to make sure we're not going to run into that again. I don't want to ever go through that level of stress again. And yeah, so we're really big on that. And I feel like talent, because it's the independent circuit, I feel like talent kind of gets treated one of 2 ways. They either get treated like WWE Junior, which, let's face it, independent's not. It's very different. We're not mainstream entertainment. We're not sports entertainers. We're wrestlers. Which by the way, random moment, but I am so bloody happy Triple H is in charge. Because he already, I heard the news that he already got rid of the term sports entertainer. They are now back to being wrestlers. That makes my heart happy. So many levels. But I feel like they either get treated like WWE Light, which is what I've always referred to it as, or they get treated like absolute nobodies. And every independent wrestler I've ever met has had something different to offer. I've never seen, an overly abused gimmick. I've never seen, somebody blatantly copying somebody else. I've always seen something, like, there's some little spark in there that makes them so different. And I think that's the key to independent wrestlers keeping the circuit going. Because the little kids are going to find that one person that they're like, I really love them. I really love everything about them. And that's going to be what gets them to start paying attention. They're going to watch for that person to keep going, keep moving, get a better opportunity. They're going to watch their Facebooks when they have them, and their Instagrams and their Twitters, and they're going to see what they're putting out. And, that's a really huge thing. And I'm really big on encouraging seminars. I think we never stop learning. You can always get better. You can always learn something new, and no criticism should be taken to heart. Like, every criticism you get needs to, and I do it too. I mean, I cried at the beginning when I came out and I wasn't getting any feedback from people. I was like, why doesn't anybody like me? And then I just realized it's because they're not paying attention to me because I'm a valet. Once I started my voodoo gimmick, people paid attention because now I'm doing something. And I find new ways constantly to make it cooler and more fun and keep it alive because it's creative.
So we got like a lot that we have to unpack here for a second because there's a lot that people need to pay attention to. And if you guys didn't catch it up, please back it up because you guys got to hear there's a lot of stuff in there that was talked about. One, it's something I talk about with my kid all the time, right? Check, double check, and recheck the rechecks. Because I'm like, you never know what's going to happen. You always want to make sure. And that's why I thought it was a great point that you made about quadruple checking dates and stuff like that. Because you never want to double book, especially if it's a major, one of the top 4 pay-per-views. It probably should be something we looked out for.
Yeah.
Another thing that you mentioned, right? And this is something, so anybody who's wondering, we're actually filming this on August 16th. So, when this episode drops, you guys will know. But the day before, it was a great example of a promo that was cut with Drew McIntyre where he said, you're a wrestler, I'm a wrestler. We're in a wrestling ring. And what we do in this ring is we fight. He's like, so let's fight. And then him and Kevin Owens had like a match. So I think that was definitely a top thing that needs to be talked about because you're right. Like the term sports entertainer, it's still there. It's just kind of getting distant from what it was supposed to be. And then the other thing that I really wanted to touch back onto was that kids find characters that they truly love and they just will follow them to the ends of the earth. And that's why I think if you're doing something so unique that people have to pay attention to you, that's great. Like that's what you should be doing. I know Chaz, him and his team, Pure Ignorance, when they get out in the ring and stuff like that, all the kids get attached to them because they're like, they are like their characters they're just street guys. Like they're street hoodlums. They just want to go around and fight people. That's all it is. They say all the things that make you want to fight them. And it's amazing because kids will be like, yeah, I kind of feel like that sometimes too. And they always get dapped up by all the kids. Like, my character gets loved because one, he's just goofy as hell. And then I definitely make it a point to know that, while I am a mercenary, I will talk as much trash as I can to you and do it in a way that people will be like, dang, that was like a good comeback. I should have never said anything to that guy. And I think there's this healthy balance, right? Where it's funny because you're also talking about it being a PG show and you can't really curse because, George Carlin may have said it that there's 399,997 words as of 1970 and only 7 of them you can't say on TV. So if you can't say those 7, just find another word
exactly
to insert because there should be no reason. Listen, I love saying the word fuck as much as possible.
Right.
When I get around kids,
I curse like a sailor. Are you kidding me? I get told regularly to knock it off.
I was like, I dare you guys to go back in this episode right now and find out when was the last time that I dropped a curse word, let alone just said that word other than the one I just dropped earlier, just 5 seconds ago. But it's you can find other words and you can find other ways to get across meanings and stuff without having to use curse words. And I think that's just the beauty of wrestling is that kids know that you want to curse. And you use a different word and they get it and the parents get it too, but the kids laugh at it because they're like, oh, I can say that now and I can get away with it. And that's the fun part about just learning verbiage and just using other words that mean something different.
I call it Shrek humor, where the parents get it, but it goes right over the heads of the kids. That stuff is fine. When we did the Kaiju Battle Royal, the King of the Kaijus. One of the guys, I can't say who because it hasn't aired yet, but he was like, well, I usually flip the birds. And I was like, and you're not gonna tonight. I was like, so you got to figure out something else. And he's like, can I do the Ross? And I was like, yes, you could do the Ross. I was like, because you know what? The parents watched Friends. We were all in the early 2000s together. They will get it. The kids will not. And it's just 2 fists going next to each other. There's nothing offensive. I was like, so you can absolutely give a Ross. That's fine. So you gotta be twinkle toes. You gotta be able to walk around and figure out what you're gonna do. And simple as that. If you can put a match together, you can figure out what words you can substitute.
I think that's such a great I'm gonna start doing that to people. Like, not even flipping a bird though. I'll just be like, yo, like
Pinky,
feathers. This is what you are. You're not worth a whole bird, but you know what we're
your
doing.
feathers. See, Shrek humor. The parents will get it. The parents will be like, "That was a good one," and yet the kids will be like, "I'm gonna stick up my pinky," and then they're just gonna look fancy.
All right.
So
And then
there you go.
everybody's gonna think you're part of the throne.
Yes, that's a great promo idea. Got one on the throne.
That's how we come full circle around in this podcast, guys. That's what we do.
Anything you can do with your pinky up, just videos of it. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna make a Dahlia promo one day with that. I'm gonna be like sipping tea. I'll do all kinds of stuff.
I like it. So let me ask, what's one advice that you give to anybody who's like an up and coming wrestler?
Honestly, train. And it's not just in the ring. You have to train yourself mentally. The biggest thing I see happen in a match is people get lost and they get confused because they're so focused on what they're going to do that they're not paying attention to what the end goal is. And that can effectively ruin your match, which everybody records everything they do now, which means you're just going to have a permanent recording of the time you got confused. I honestly believe that people should be watching old school wrestling because that's back to what things are going to. I didn't grow up watching wrestling. I started watching wrestling as an adult. So I had access to WWE Network, and when I would get bored with, whatever Raw or SmackDown I just watched, I'd start backtracking. And I started back at the beginning. So I started watching Jake the Snake. I started watching I became a valet because of Miss Elizabeth. I loved everything about her. She was class and sass and everything in between. And I went, you know what? If I'm going to do that, that's who I want to. That's who I want to idolize. I want to be like Miss Elizabeth. I want to bring class and sass back. Because honestly, like ballets aren't a huge role. They're supporting roles, but they're important. They convey a story just like anybody else. Anytime I've gotten involved in a match, something bad's happened. and that's the thing. I'm not a heel, but I like to start some shit. So that's what Dahlia's always done. She's always been the one that's like, if there's trouble going on, you look for her. But that's what makes it fun for me. And so for new wrestlers, I think it's honestly get proper training. Don't rush into working as a worker. You need to put your time in. I'm not an active wrestler because I don't think I've put in enough time. I haven't. Another thing too, don't be afraid to hit the gym and take care of yourself. Like you're considered an athlete. You need to have a proper diet. You need to have a proper exercise plan. And honestly, like I feel like sometimes, especially with more newer people, it gets pushed aside. They're like, yeah, I can go to a ring and I can learn to take a bump and I can do this and I can do that. And that's great. But if you're going to do this as an athlete, athletes train daily. I train daily and I'm not even a wrestler technically. I'm not even active on my roster. I'm GM. So, chief cook and bottle washer. But I'm not going to stop being GM till I feel confident enough to get in the ring. And you have to be willing to take your time. There's some people that the old school way was training for, what was it, 1 to 2 years before you even got a match.
Yeah. And
now I feel like there's people that are like, oh yeah, I've been training for 6 months. I'm ready to win. And I'm like, who wants to pop that bubble? Because I don't think I have it in me today. It's like, no, honey, you're not ready. Like,
that's
even
so funny.
Another piece of advice, which I think I've been seeing a lot of this coming out from promoters, so I want to definitely encourage it. For the love of God, make a resume. I can't tell you how many times KPW gets a message from a wrestler and it's, hey, I really want to be on your show. And I'm waiting for a resume. So there's a few where I've had to be like, okay, can you send me a resume? Like not your YouTube reel. I need to see who you've worked for. I need to see who you've trained with. I need to see a headshot that I can use for promotion. Like, if you don't have one, you need to let me know because KPW usually provides a photographer. We provide headshots at our shows.
That's awesome.
Um, that I started out as a photographer in this business. I started out by doing it for Delta Wrestling Alliance out of Pennsylvania. Um, just trying to help them, build their roster page, get all that stuff done. And I think it's really important. If you're going to be professional, would you apply for a job and not have a resume ready?
No, not unless I really didn't care about the job. And then in that case, you probably shouldn't apply for it.
Exactly. And so that's kind of the tutelage I'm trying to pass on is like, even when we worked, we did a scouting event with LTW and 1CW, and I'm totally not going to remember everybody because there was like 7 feds there.
Yeah,
I just remember,
I remember
I just,
that.
and that was our way of saying we're here and we're watching. And we I think we were the only ones that spent we had somebody at our table the entire time. We had notebooks going. We were comparing notes like during the breakdown. Like, all right, who do we want? Who do we not want? The first thing we all said was who gave us a resume. And every time they came over to introduce themselves and sign in, we're like, okay, do you have a resume with you? And it was shocking how many people were like, but you know me. I don't need a resume. No, you still do. I'm recruiting you. I need something to take home and put in my file. Like, if if I don't have that, I don't know what to do. And so I think that's a really huge thing is if you're going to promote yourself and really get into this business, reach out to multiple federations. Don't be afraid to work for people. Build yourself a resume and get yourself a freaking headshot. It's not hard to do. You can technically do it with these fancy phones now, but make sure it's a high res photo and that it presents you in your gear, because that's going to be what any promoter takes home from an event. They're going to take home that piece of paper, not necessarily like remember you. We're going to take notes on the back of your resume. So if we don't have one, we may not be taking notes on you, or we may have to come over and ask you what your name is. That's the worst.
Yeah.
I had to do that to a couple people where I was like, I cannot for the life of me remember that person's name. And I had to go over and ask and then write down their contact information. And it was something.
It's funny because I remember Paul Heyman, right? So I'm glad that we're like talking about this stuff too. Paul Heyman was talking about he couldn't remember somebody. He couldn't remember like all the wrestlers that they went and saw. They were like, I forget where they were. They're in some place doing the tryouts, and there was one person in particular he remembered by name. And the reason
Yep.
why he remembered them by name is because he introduced himself as Paul Heyman. He's like, hey, I'm Paul
Yeah.
Heyman. That's me.
Yep.
That's my name. That's the guy. He said, that guy right there. And then he said his name, his actual name. He's like, that's my guy. That's right. He's a Paul Heyman type guy. And he was talking directly to Paul about it. So Paul was like, hey, and I think his name was like James. Hey, James, come here. And he's like, because he remembered that he
Yep.
was, he essentially cut a promo as Paul Heyman introducing James, right? We'll use James as his name. But he was like, do you remember anybody else from there? No, there's like 003, 269.
Yep.
There's
Yep.
James. And so like, that's how he got in I guess the kid is now training at the Performance Center, but because he did that, he's thinking outside the box that
Yep.
like, that's what they wanted to bring him in. I like the idea. Like, I might have to do that now. Like, now that you say it out loud, I may just have to like bring like a physical resume in with
Yeah.
me. I do have my own, but I've never thought about like that idea because like I feel like I go to a lot of promoters that I work at anyway, but because I remember the seminar that you guys are talking about because I was supposed to go and I got booked at a show, and so I went to the booking,
Well,
and
that's obvious. You're going to go to the booking over,
yeah,
over the recruiting
yeah,
event.
at that point, but you never know because sometimes like and you can make that determination and be like, I'm gonna go to here because and it's every person's gonna be different, right? You could have
Right.
that booking, be guaranteed, right, that you're gonna get a spot, right? Or you could pass on that, take the chance to go meet 7 new people and possibly be able to work at 7 new feds.
Yep.
So I mean, there is that plus minus.
Well, and the other thing too is I think it's important, especially with the resume stuff, is no matter how long you're in the business, realize that not everybody's going to book you. You don't fit in everywhere. Nobody's cookie cutter. I actually had a wrestler approach me several months after that very same recruiting event and was like, I know you wanted to book me. I know somebody told you not to book me. And I said, actually, no. I said, if you really want to know the feedback, I do remember you from it. And I can tell you, well, I saw my name on a notebook. Yeah, it was a notebook of people to discuss. And I explained to him that his personality, how he behaves in the locker room is why we didn't book him. It didn't fit our attitude. And my job as a promoter is to give constructive feedback. It's not always positive, but I will happily give positivity to it. And so I explained to him, I was like, dude, if I look at your social media, you got beef with everybody. You've got promoters tossing you out the door. You've got, so much animosity. When your name even comes up, people leave the room. I put you in my locker room. I can almost guarantee something is going to be said or done that is going to either have me ask you to leave, and now I have a vacancy that I'm going to have to fill, or you're going to ruin any chance of coming back, because our company's always been zero tolerance. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I did turn it around constructively and said, hey, listen, people change. If you see that this is what's going on and you're having a hard time getting booked and you're having, issues with this and issues with this person and issues with that person, change your approach. I said, you're going to get kicked. You're going to get kicked like still. But over time, people are going to notice a change in your personality and they're going to notice a change in you. And then they're going to want to work with you. And it's not being shady. It's genuinely growing as an individual. And what I'm telling you is, as a promoter, this is what I saw. And it didn't fit my company. So right. No, I can't book you, because if I book you, I'm literally putting a square peg in a round hole. It's not going to work. But if you give it some time and show people you're changing and actually make yourself into the person that you want to be, because they do want to change, then let that come to fruition. And then we can talk about booking. We can talk about, maybe I can get you in with somebody else that we're working with, or maybe I could bring you to a new territory where people don't have an issue with you. I don't have a problem with that. My company's expanding. I have no problem saying, hey, who wants to come up to Connecticut? Hey, who wants to come up to New York? Who wants to come out to PA? My roster will always get first dibs, and then I go creatively outside of there to expand. So that individual, I think I got through to him because he's been so much better. I told him I check in with him every once in a while. I'm like, hey, I'm still watching what you're doing. This is what I'm seeing. I think you're in a good role. I mean, yeah, people are still kicking him. They're beating him down. They're telling him they're not going to book him, but he's not losing hope because he knows he's trying.
No, I like that though, and that's the great thing. Like that's what every I don't want to say, because it's not fair. Every average to good wrestler wants, and even great wrestlers to epic wrestlers want, is that they want good. They just want like feedback that's going to help them grow and become better in what they're doing. Like, and I don't. It sounds bad when I say that, right? Because I'm not saying that bad wrestlers don't want criticism. It's just sometimes some wrestlers just can't take critiques.
Yes.
And get pissed off.
Some take criticism so personally that I can literally see the butt hurt developing. Like, I'm going to start packing in the first aid kit for Kaiju. I'm going to start packing diaper rash cream.
Yeah. Just like a saline collector, just like
yes, like the boogie collector. I think I still have one from when my kid was little, so I'm gonna slide that sucker in there. But yeah, there's actually it's getting a little bit better. I think it's all in the approach too. I think some people, if you come over and you're like, hey, I want to talk to you about your match, they're now on guard and they're expecting the worst. I think it's different when it's not about being dishonest, because you don't want to be dishonest when you give feedback. You want to be constructive, and part of being constructive is being able to deliver that same information possibly a different way. where if they get insulted, you can say, okay, well, hang on. Maybe that's not what I meant. Maybe I meant it this way. And kind of situating it out that way so that the person kind of sees around the offensive part
Yeah.
and gets the message. Because let's face it, nobody learns the same way. People learn different ways. Everybody's different. Everybody's a different person. Everybody operates differently. Everybody has different insecurities too. So I think as long as people don't take criticism as a personal attack, they're in a good spot.
Yeah, no, I agree with that a whole bunch. So listen, we're gonna jump into the second best segment of the Three Count podcast.
Got
Probably
it.
wonder what the first is. It's the Red Dogs Power Rankings that you can find sometimes on our debate shows on Sundays because recently, like, it's just wrestling is a lot and there's a lot of wrestling. And sometimes you just can't watch all the products to make a top 10 list. And that's what happens. But this is the Three Count podcast, 10 count questions. And Ms. Dahlia, this is how it works. I'm going to fire off 10 questions at you rapid fast. And whatever your answer is, that's your answer.
Okay.
So we're going to put on the imaginary timer for added pressure. Bing! And in the words of Mike Goldberg, here we go. SmackDown or Raw?
Oh, SmackDown.
Favorite movie?
Legend from 1986, not the Tom Hardy one.
I got you. Sonic or Mario?
Oh, Mario.
Favorite actor?
Tom Hardy.
There's no need to fear.
I do have a thing for Bane. I can't help it.
Godzilla or King Kong?
Oh, you bring up a kaiju question. That's cruelty. Oh. All right. I got to pick Godzilla. Only because I really like going, Godzilla!
Favorite cartoon?
Sailor Moon.
Hey, my daughter was just watching that today. Apple or Android?
Oh, Android. No iPhones in this house.
Favorite podcast?
I'm on it.
Right? It's not like we don't have this thing like marketed like everywhere around here to like influence this at all. All right. Well, nominate one person that you want to see on this podcast.
I know everybody's going to think I'm going to say Blackthorn, but I'm not. Honestly, if I have to pick anybody who's truly passionate about wrestling, Josh Adams, aka Violence.
I love me some Violence. I really do. He's actually, so it's funny. We'll pause the timer for a quick second. Him and I ran into each other at HWT last year. Actually, 9/11 was the show date, right? So we ran into each other. We talked there the first time we met, and then we met each other at another show. I can't remember where we ran into each other, and then we ran into each other again back at HWT, and we actually got to work in a fatal 4-way, and then. By the time this episode comes out, we would have wrestled for the HWT title. So
nice.
So maybe you might see it on a future episode. Maybe you won't. I don't know yet. We'll have to find that out. But yeah, one of my favorite people to talk to. Such a great person. And then when I saw his episode on the 2300 podcast, I was dying to watch him play Connect 4.
That was at the Kaiju show. I'm in the background doing my makeup. I'm sitting at the table listening and laughing while trying to literally put glitter on my eyeballs. It was hilarious.
And then my last question that I like to ask every single person that comes on this show, and this will be a fun one. Favorite curse word?
So I'm notorious for not being offended by the C word. Especially being in the wrestling business with guys around. I usually one will drop and I get stared at and I'm like, I don't care. I gotta go with the classic fuck. Because it's classic.
Yes, it's a great word to use. Some might say it's classy, but I love that word because I think it goes with everything. You can use it in any different way you want.
It's the little black dress of cussing.
It is.
It goes with everything.
Yeah, and then you can insert it into words. That's like,
Right.
that makes it even better.
I can't tell you how many times a day. I mean, I'm a social worker. I can't tell you how many times a day I drop the words fuck twit when I'm handling a case and I'm like, goddamn fuck twit, I have to call this person. Um, so yes. So I like the little black dress of cuss words.
Love it. Well, listen, those are all my questions that I have to ask. So the last thing I need is for you to let our viewers and our listeners know where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So honestly, you can find Dahlia on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I do have a TikTok. It's still new. But I do have one TikTok up that I did at GTS with Tina. Um, so honestly, best way to find me is I do all the posting for Kaiju Pro Wrestling, KPW, on Facebook. We also have an Instagram, a Twitter, a tick that we actually have an active TikTok on that for the company. Um, but yeah, if you look up Dahlia, it's kind of hard to miss me.
Well, there you go. She gave you all her handles. She told you about how you can find Kaiju Pro Wrestling, and you guys know what to do. Go out there, give all the follows, give all the likes, and give all the comments. And like every great part of a wrestling match, we got to take this home because this is the 3 Count Podcast presents Now Entering, and I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller, the man that leads you out this mountain called wrestling. And like every good Sherpa, you got to have someone who's been there, done that, and can do it more efficiently than you can. That's why it's never about me. It's about who's entering, and who's entering. You see her right there. Okay,
Yep.
the well knowledge, the well powerful, the all knowing voodoo having friend right there, Dahlia. So you guys know what to do. Tune in to the next episode and be there, or you're literally subscribing to our YouTube channel right now. You are looking at all of our Spotify stuff. You're following us on Apple iTunes. You're following all of our social media stuff right here. You're going to prowrestlingtees.com/the 3 Count Podcast, buying our merchandise. You're doing all that. You're telling all your friends about us. You're doing all this great stuff, or you're really just waiting for this episode to end. You're waiting for the outro, and then you're choosing another episode to listen to. Peace. What's going on, 3 Count Nation? I'm Clifford Red Dog Miller with the catchphrase. But what I really want to do right now, go to twitter.com, right? Go over there, find us at the 3Count_pod, give us a follow, give us a like, give us a comment. We want to talk to you guys. Go to IG at the 3Count Pod. Give us a like, give us a follow, leave us a comment. We want to interact with you. Go to youtube.com, give subscribe, turn the bell on, turn the notifications, leave a comment. We want to talk to you. Go to anchor.fm/the 3Count Podcast, and in there, you can leave us a message, and we will talk to you. Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is that we want to talk to you. We want to have fun with you guys, and we love listening to what you guys have to say. Also, one thing I need you to do for me, the 3Count Podcast also has merchandise. At prowrestlingtees.com/the 3Count Pod. Please go buy our t-shirts. We love you guys, and we hope you love us too. So show us some support, please.